Hey everyone, it's that time again. Epic Online. Hey, hopefully we are running towards the very end of all this quarantine stuff, but just bear with me a couple more weeks. There are lots of stories that we have, especially if you have siblings, lots of stories of times where you guys just kind of clashed or where you ran into issues. But no bigger topic in my family's house and with my brother, no bigger topic is up for debate than what I call the great action figure debate, or the great action figure issue. See, I was sick one year, and I was, maybe 10 or 11, and my brother had decided that he was going to go out. He had some spare change, some money lying around, and so he was going to go out and buy an action figure. Now, there were certain action figures that I knew to be very rare. There was one specific X-Men character I wanted, and so I gave him about $7 or $8, and I said, if they have this character, buy it for me. Joel went to the store, and when he came back, he's like, I got great news for you. And I was like, yes, yeah, what is it? And he gave me this character that I hadn't asked for. It was an action figure I didn't want. And I said, okay, well, where's my extra money? And he said, oh, well, you don't have any extra money. It cost all of what you had. Now, here's where I start digging in a little deeper, especially when it deals with money. And I was like, okay, explain this to me. See, come to find out, there were two action figures that my brother Joel really, really wanted. But to get both of them, they were out of his price range. The store happened to have a deal going where it was buy two, get one free. And so he figured I would take Josh's extra money, buy the second action figure Joel really wanted, and then give me the free character. Someone that I didn't really want, but yet he spent all of my money on it. Well, this outraged me, and I went and complained to my parents, and somehow my brother Joel convinced my parents that he was really doing me a favor. And do you know what happened at the end? I was stuck with the bad action figure, and Joel got the two good action figures. It was one of those things that years down the road, we still brought up this topic. And years later, he was still stuck on, he did a good thing. And I was stuck on how much he screwed me over out of my money. It was such a big debate in our head. And it was one of those things, anytime someone brought it up, we both put us both back into that situation where we were both a little upset, angry, hurt, really perturbed with one another. We've been talking about atypical families for the last couple of weeks, and this whole idea that no family is normal. If you are holding out and hoping that one day your family will be normal, the truth is no families are normal. I mean, you ask some of your closest friends that you think their family is ideal, and you'll find out that they have issues with their family as well. And we've been talking about some of these things that maybe God is putting us in the right place at the right time to bring change, good change, to our family. But the truth is, it starts with you. And one of the biggest issues that I think families deal with and individual people in the families deal with is what I call the big F word. Yes, prepare the censor, because we are talking about the big F word today, and that is forgiveness. I mean, the reason why forgiveness is so hard for a lot of us is, especially in families, we see these people day in and day out. Can I tell you, as sad as it is, for that next week, anytime I saw my brother playing with his new action figures, knowing that somehow he convinced my parents to give away my money, it bothered me. It irked me. It made me upset. And this isn't the type of thing where we can just walk away from our family and be like, hey, see you later, see you next month or whatever. These are people that we live around day in and day out. We deal with these issues day in and day out. And so we are constantly reminded of how they hurt us, or maybe we see the thing that they are holding that they somehow screwed us out of. Or maybe we feel like there's favoritism, and so because of that, we see this person, and anytime they get any favoritism whatsoever, it sends us right back to where we were before. But forgiveness is hard, especially in families, because we are around these people all the time. And this whole idea that I am missing out on something, I have gotten the raw end of the deal, bothers us so deeply. And that leads us to the family in the Bible that, as we've talked about, there are so many families in the Bible that have so many issues, but we have not left the book of Genesis, and we have run into family issue after family issue after family issue. And today's family is no different. In fact, It's probably one of the most screwed up issues that you can find in the Bible, and we know this story by heart, and it's the story of Joseph. See, Joseph was the favorite of his father, which, isn't bad, except his father had a ton of other kids. And Joseph, being the good little sibling that he is, made sure to drive home that point that I am the favorite with his brothers. His dad gave him a new jacket, a special jacket, and he would go around his brothers and be like, look what daddy got me. And you poor, oh, Reuben, what are you wearing? And he would rub it in his brothers' faces. He started having these dreams and visions that God gave him about his brothers bowing down to him and eventually his parents worshiping him. And like any good sibling, he rubbed it in his brothers' faces. And after a while, his brothers got so upset, they're like, you know what? We're done with him. Let's kill him. No, seriously, they wanted to kill him. In fact, one of his brothers finally convinced him, hey, let's not kill him. We'll just throw him in a pit, knock him around a little bit, and eventually we'll come back. But when that brother left, his other brothers decided to sell him to slavers. I mean, you think you have sibling issues, you think those couple of fights you've had, or the fact that maybe the sibling bullies you a little bit, you think that is bad? Imagine being sold to slavers from your brother. Now, Joseph's life gets better and then it gets worse. He becomes one of Potiphar's main servants. Potiphar is leaning on him, and then Potiphar's wife falsely accuses Joseph of something, and Joseph goes into prison. He's in prison for a long time, and eventually, through interpreting dreams, Pharaoh takes him and rescues him out of prison and puts him second in charge of all of Egypt. He has everything going for him, and guess who shows up on Joseph's doorstep one day but his brothers? And here they think Joseph is dead. They don't recognize him. And Joseph has every opportunity to get revenge. And yet Joseph saves his family. He provides them food. He has them all move to Egypt. Joseph has had it rough with his family, and yet he is still taking care of them and loving them. And then finally, it all comes to a head in Genesis 50, where Joseph's father dies, and the brothers are like, okay, this is it. There is no one protecting us from our brother and his revenge now. I mean, this isn't like he took away his drink or, he smacked him around a little bit. They sold him as a slave. They tried to kill him. And in Genesis 50, starting in verse 14, it says this: after burying his father, Joseph went back to Egypt. All his brothers who had come with him to bury his father returned with him. After the funeral, Joseph's brothers talked among themselves. What if Joseph is carrying a grudge and decides to pay us back for all the wrong we did him? So they sent Joseph a message. Before his death, your father gave us a command. Tell Joseph, forgive your brother's sins and all that wrongdoing. They did treat you very badly, but will you do it? Will you forgive the sins of the servants of your father God? I mean, after all that they did to him, it would be hard to forgive him. I would have a hard time. As I said, an action figure put us at odds for a week and months and even a year or two, let alone being sold as a slave, being eventually put into prison, having awful thing after awful thing happen, and now Joseph is in line for revenge. What would you do in that circumstance? Those siblings, those people that have wronged you, and now you are set up to perfectly enact revenge on them. What would you do? It says this: when Joseph received their message, he wept. Then the brothers went in person to him, threw themselves on the ground before him, and said, "We will be your slaves." Joseph replied, "Don't be afraid. Do I act for God? Don't you see you planned evil against me, but God used those same plans for my good, as you see all around you right now, life for many people. Easy now. You have nothing to fear." Not only does he forgive them, but he says, "I will take care of you and your children." He reassured them, speaking with them heart to heart. I mean, think about that. Not only does he forgive them, but he is going to take care of them now. See, some of you guys know what I'm speaking about when I say unforgiveness, because you feel it deep down in your heart. For those of you that maybe you are living in a family situation where hurt is continually coming, and I'm not talking about someone saying, that you're stupid or what. I'm talking about like someone is doing harm to you week after week, day after day. This is not an excuse for you to cover it up or pretend like it doesn't exist or be like, no, it's okay, it's fine. You need to talk to someone. If serious things are being done to you, you need to talk to someone. But for some of us, we are harboring grudges and unforgiveness for small things, maybe for bigger things. Maybe there are people in our life, our family members, our parents, mothers or fathers that at one point were not good to us, mistreated us, ignored us. Maybe they were dealing with addictions and stuff, and now things have changed, but we still go back to that old mentality of this is what they used to do, this is how they used to be, and we have such a hard time forgiving stuff. Maybe some of us, we've held on to the way we've been treated for years. And it might be something small. We see that brother that is treated better, or that sister that is treated better, and every time it happens, every time we are convinced in our head that they are being shown favoritism, we go right back to those emotions and that anger, and it just feels like we are constantly adding more and more weight and more pressure because they don't know it, but we are holding unforgiveness towards them. And anytime we see that person and anytime those situations come back up, we hold it against them. I mean, there were times growing up where my brother didn't do anything wrong, and yet he did something that set off those emotions again, and immediately I could be in the best of moods, but immediately when I saw it, I was right back in that moment where I was angry with him again. He had no idea. He didn't even know what was up. He was just like, wow, Josh is emotional. But inside, that unforgiveness would just build up, and every small thing would bring me right back to that moment. And some of you guys know what I'm talking about. That look that your parents give you. That slight you feel that they're doing to you. Those times where you are in trouble and it sets you right back. And sometimes that unforgiveness builds up to the point where we flip out and get mad and hold grudges over the silliest of things. It is the stupidest of things that sometimes will set us right back off. And as I said, the reason why our family feels like they hit us the hardest is because we are around them the most. We see them day in and day out. So today I want to challenge you, again with that F word of forgiveness. I want to challenge you to start looking at your family and saying, you know what? F you. Just F you. Don't go the whole... Because today I want to talk to you guys about how you can look at those people, maybe face to face or maybe sometimes just personally, and say, you know what? I forgive you. So how do we forgive someone? The first thing is this: admitting the hurt. I can hold so much unforgiveness and never see that there's an issue. Pretend like everything's fine. Pretend like it's just my brother or my parents that are setting me off. But the first thing you need to do to start bring healing and to start forgiving people is to recognize that there is a hurt inside of you. That maybe somewhere along the way, you felt like they showed you favoritism, and inside it has caused this hurt that says, I am loved less. Even if it's not true, we can build that up inside of us. Or we can have that person do something, that brother or sister do something to us, and we feel like it is an act of betrayal against us. And so we look at that person and say, they don't treat me like family, they don't love me. They're just looking for opportunities to stab me in the back. But the first thing is admitting that there is a hurt. This is the hurt that is going on inside of me. This is the unforgiveness that I'm dealing with. There is something there, and we need to admit it. The second thing is tell God that you need help forgiving. I mean, we initially think we just go to God and be like, hey, God, I pray that you forgive this person. But maybe it starts with saying, okay, God, I need your help forgiving this person. It is so hard to forgive them because of this, or because there have been so many years of this buildup that it feels impossible. But God, I need your help. Ask God to heal those parts of you that were hurt. The truth is, if healing never comes, you will always experience those wounds. For me, my ACL has healed and it's been repaired for a long time, but I still get nervous when it comes to a point of pivot because I'm constantly afraid that that injury will re-show itself. And in the same way, if we're not dealing with those areas that need to be healed within us, every time we look at that person, every time they say that thing, it'll set us right back where we were before. So start saying, you know what, God, I pray that you'd heal me from the fact that I don't feel loved and show me that I am loved. God, I pray that you would heal me for this jealousy and this anger and this bitterness I've been holding against my sibling. Heal that within me. Here's another thing. Choose to focus on moving on instead of living in the past. Some of us, we have asked for forgiveness. We have believed in forgiveness. We have admitted the issues. We have given it to God. We've even told those people, I forgive you. But then we see them or we see them do something small and we start living in the past all over again. You've chosen to forgive them, but you don't give them an opportunity to live in that forgiveness. Part of forgiveness is choosing to move forward, to say, I've forgiven you. And I'm going to live my life and move on and start treating you differently. And then the hardest part is to forgive. To say, you know what, I forgive you. There's a really excellent story, and she is such a person that I look up to, and her name is Corrie ten Boom. And Corrie, she had a rough life. I mean, you think your life is rough? See, her family saw what was happening during World War II. She saw the people, the Jewish people that were being abused and they were being killed. And so they created a safe place in their house to hide people away. And they did for the longest time to keep them safe. But eventually someone ratted them out. Corrie's whole family was taken away into concentration camps. Corrie was there in the women's camp with her sister, and her sister would throw Bible studies and have worship sessions in the middle of a concentration camp. This isn't prison where you can watch TV and work out with weights. This is concentration camp where they were beaten and abused, and she saw awful, awful things happen to her sister and others, where people were being killed around them daily. And yet her sister kept on focusing on God, kept on encouraging Corrie and others to focus on God. Eventually, Corrie's sister dies, and eventually Corrie is released from this prison camp. And she goes around the world telling the story of God's grace and God's forgiveness. But there is a story of one time she is at this conference decades later, and she is teaching at the conference about God's forgiveness. And she says she meets this guy's eye and she sees him. And the minute she sees him, she knows who it is because she is revisited by that face decades later of a man who was one of her torturers, of a man who was one of her prison guards in concentration camp. To make matters worse, after this meeting is done, he comes up and he says, I heard you talking about this camp. You might not recognize me. And inside she's going, I do. Your face has never stopped haunting me. And he says, I was one of your guards. I was one of those that did awful things to you. I'm asking for your forgiveness. I mean, think about that in that moment. This man has done awful things to her and her family, things that they did not deserve, things that were so awful. And here he is asking for her forgiveness. She said she was staring there at him, and nothing inside wanted to reach out and shake that hand that he was extending to her. But she was like, okay, God, if your grace, if your love has forgiven me, I need your help, Father, to forgive him. She has this quote that says, forgiveness is not an emotion. It is an act of will. It's not saying, I feel in forgiving mood. But it's looking at those people and saying, even though I don't feel it, I will forgive you. Because in the end, you're not only setting them free, you're setting yourself free. And so she did. In that moment, she says that she prayed to Jesus, admitting that area that she needed help. She said, Jesus, will you help me? Jesus, I can lift my hand. And that's about it. Can you do the rest? And she prayed it, and she said, like a robot, she lifted it up and grabbed his hand and a handshake. And she said suddenly she was overwhelmed, this tingling, this feeling that started in her fingertips and spread all throughout the body. And it ended with her and this man that added to her torture, this man that added to her sister's death, embracing each other and bawling, and her saying, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. Who have you been harboring feelings of unforgiveness for? Do you know what I mean when I say it feels like you are carrying around weight that never leaves you, and it just feels like all that happens is every time you see them, every time they do something, it just adds more and more and more. As we've said from the beginning of this series, God wants to bring a change in your family, but oftentimes it is you that he uses as that instrument of change. Our families and ourselves will thrive when we stop adding to their faults and adding to the things that we are holding against them, and instead look at them and say, okay, God, I can't do it, but with your help I can. And choosing not to feel the emotion, but to make that choice of will to say, I forgive you. And to find that burden, that weight that you are carrying, those debts, those wrongdoings that you have held against them, is slowly over time released, the freedom that it brings. God does not want your family held down by unforgiveness. God does not want you living in the past constantly because you are not able to let it go and to give it to him and to say, God, help me to forgive. He wants you to live in freedom. He wants the weight removed. He wants your family to be blessed. The question is, will we choose to say F you? I forgive you. God, I pray that you be with each and every student. This whole idea of forgiveness can be super hard depending on what hurts we have experienced, what emotions we have gone through, what these people have done to us. But I pray right now that you'd bring those people to our mind, those people that have hurt us, those people that have wronged us in some way, those people that maybe we are keeping this list of what they have done. And the truth is, it is becoming sillier and sillier over time because we're just holding more and more against them. And I pray that you would help us to admit the hurt that we are feeling, Lord God, that you would help us to tell you that we need help in forgiving this person. That we would ask you to heal those parts within us that need healing, Father. That we would forgive them and not live in the past, but move on. I pray that our atypical families would experience an amazing awakening and revival that comes from living a life of not holding things against one another, but a life of living in forgiveness. We thank you and praise you in your name. Amen. All right, students. As I say each and every week, and it is truer more and more, we miss you. I can't wait for you to meet Ava. I can't wait for you to see Ari again. I can't wait for, Melissa to hang out with you guys and joke around. I can't wait to hug all of you guys. We miss you. We love you. We are here for you day in and day out. If you are experiencing a hard day, give me a call, send me a text message, talk to Melissa. We want to be there for you guys. If in this message you're like, hey, there are people that I am dealing with unforgiveness with and I'm just having a hard time, reach out to us. We want to help you through this. You don't have to do this on your own. If you're going stir crazy in your house, reach out to us. We are here for you. We love you guys. We care about you. And we can't wait to see you guys soon. All right. Have a great Wednesday and see you on Zoom in just a little bit.